Hello and how's it going, everyone? It is Skullzi here with the latest gaming news, rumors, and speculation. Since Bethesda are embracing their silence fetish once again regarding Starfield, and since The Elder Scrolls 6 for some reason is randomly trending again, I guess, I decided to talk about something other than Starfield for once today, which obviously is The Elder Scrolls 6. But instead of just talking about Hammerfell or insane scribbles on a wall and what they mean for the future of the gaming industry because they look like a map, I'd rather decide to take a more educated and sensible approach. So today we're going to look at the direction Bethesda Game Studios are taking with Starfield, what new game systems they're adding, and what already existing things they're overhauling to a massive degree, and using all this as a filter of sorts to look into the future, using Starfield as a crystal ball to tell us what the Elder Scrolls 6 will most likely feature in terms of both gameplay mechanics and systems. So with all this in mind, let's not waste any more time and get right into today's content. Remember, all this should be considered speculation and in no way should be taken as confirmed information. However, as speculation goes, this should be fairly solid for two major reasons. One being that Bethesda Game Studios have proven that new major gameplay systems tend to stick around for a while. One notable example of this is the settlement and construction system, which first loosely got introduced with the Skyrim Hearthfire DLC and then expanded upon in Fallout 4, Fallout 76, and obviously now, Starfield. So new systems we see in Starfield will almost certainly be within the Elder Scrolls 6 as well, in one way or another. And the second major reason is, this is basically how game development works, spending time and resources and money creating entirely new gameplay systems or overhauling existing ones aren't best utilized to just use once and then throw away. I mean, after all, this costs time and money, so these systems and their code will be inherited within most future titles in one way or another, and this goes for almost any other game development studio, including Bethesda. But with all that supporting evidence aside, let's go ahead and get to the fun stuff. Let's get the obvious stuff out of the way first. We know that the Elder Scrolls 6 will most likely be running on Creation Engine 2, or more likely a further upgraded version of it. This means that TES 6 will have graphics similar to Starfield, if not more polished. Of course, even though graphical fidelity will remain the same, the overall visual vibe and aesthetic of TES 6 will differ greatly from Starfield as, to better accommodate the fantasy universe and individual and unique regions the Elder Scrolls 6 has to offer. In combination with the obvious graphical improvements, Starfield also shows us that Bethesda are paying particular attention to overhauling their in-game UI and menu system, making it both more user-friendly as well as having an overall improved visual quality. This goes from every UI and game menu that we've seen in Starfield so far, from character creation to skills to research to crafting and beyond. Bethesda won't just go from better menus in Starfield to something less substantial in the Elder Scrolls 6, meaning TES 6 could potentially feature the best UI and menu build out of any previous Elder Scrolls game yet. This is huge in my opinion, as one of the biggest criticisms Bethesda faced with their previous titles like Skyrim, Fallout 4, and Fallout 76 have all been about the menu and the UI, claiming it felt old, clunky, and outdated. Clearly Bethesda took notice of this and improved the in-game menus within Starfield, meaning the Elder Scrolls 6 will most likely feature this upgrade as well. But saying TES 6 will have better graphics, menus, and even physics should all be obvious and are basically all safe assumptions, so let's get to some of the less obvious and more exciting stuff, starting with settlement building. Following the trend that Fallout 4 and in some ways Skyrim started, we know Starfield will feature settlement building, which means the Elder Scrolls 6 will no doubt feature settlement building as well, but Starfield takes this entire building system in a new direction, one with more depth and variability than previous Bethesda settlement building mechanics, one that is more focused on resources, crew management, and production. While Fallout 4 no doubt featured some of these elements, Starfield takes it in an entire new level and direction, which is very interesting as settlement construction and management within Starfield seems to fit the tone, vibe, and setting well, but how would it fit into the Elder Scrolls 6? Well, we could take this speculation in all sorts of directions. Here is what I think. I believe in the Elder Scrolls 6, for the first time our player could be a noble of some kind, meaning not at the start of the game, but at some point throughout TES 6 we could inherit a noble title, and we've sort of inherited noble titles in previous Elder Scrolls games. No spoilers here if you somehow haven't played them for some reason and are watching this video, but anyway, this isn't how I envision it to be within the Elder Scrolls 6. I expect us to inherit a noble title at some point throughout the game by questing and doing the main story. I expect us to be able to build towns, settlements, and manage our noble house, fighting other noble dynasties for power, territory, and influence. I believe TES 6 will take some inspiration from Mount & Blade in this regard, only it won't be the prime focus of the game, and like Fallout 4's settlement management system, it'll be optional but highly encouraged. Of course, this is my own speculation, but seeing how TES 6 will no doubt feature settlement management of some kind, this is the way I believe it could be implemented that makes the most sense, especially if the game takes place in High Rock and Hammerfell, two regions that have a lot of infighting between various noble groups, which would fit the entire setting and this gameplay mechanic perfectly. But let's move on to the next thing, crafting. Crafting has been in Bethesda Game Studios games for a very long time, but again, Starfield will overhaul the crafting system even further. This is another one of those obvious things though. Clearly the Elder Scrolls 6 will feature crafting, and clearly it will be better than it has been in previous games, but Starfield adds sort of a new feature layered on top of this crafting system. Well, two, actually. The first one is cooking. We've been able to cook in previous Bethesda games, but it seems like Starfield is stepping this up even further, by allowing the player to get access and perhaps find new exotic cooking recipes and ingredients, and even further it seems to indicate that cooking could be its own skill with set levels within Starfield as well. If Bethesda are spending the time and resources to overhaul cooking in a space RPG, we can almost be certain that the Elder Scrolls 6 will feature a similar cooking system as well. The second system layered into the new crafting mechanic is research. We haven't really seen a research system like what Starfield offers in the previous Bethesda game. Sure, we could occasionally get access to new plans or crafting recipes, especially in Fallout 76, but Starfield features an entire new system revolving around research, with even new player perks and traits focused on improving research as well. Starfield's research system seems to unlock upgrades and recipes for virtually every other system in the game: cooking, settlement construction, ship construction, weapon upgrades, and more. With research being a new system featured in Starfield, and with how heavily ingrained it is within the game itself, I feel like it's safe to say that the Elder Scrolls 6 will somehow feature a research system of its own, likely very similar to that of Starfield, but with an Elder Scrolls twist, like researching magic, new spells, and potentially even creating new spells entirely, something I really miss from Oblivion. We could also as well perhaps research the ability to upgrade our noble dynasty towns, armies, and so much more, so there is a lot of potential here. We can even research upgrading our ship, our spaceship within the Elder Scrolls 6, because the next thing I want to talk about is ship building. I expect us to be able to build spaceships within the Elder Scrolls 6. No, I'm just joking, but I'm also not at the same time. I do expect us to be able to build and upgrade a ship, or maybe even multiple ships within the Elder Scrolls 6, but definitely not spaceships, just regular ships. Since many theorize that the Elder Scrolls 6 will take place in both Hammerfell and High Rock, it seems likely that the massive body of water, the Iliac Bay, will be featured within the game as well, meaning that TES 6 for the first time could have ship-based mechanics, including exploring by sea, finding random islands, fighting sea serpents, and also piracy. If Starfield has piracy and ships, and if the Elder Scrolls 6 has ships, I'd expect both games to share very similar ship-based systems, including upgrades, research, managing your crew, and more. Of course, I don't expect the Elder Scrolls 6 to be like Assassin's Creed Black Flag, meaning that the majority of the game won't be on water and the ship, but instead it'll be a side thing that is also highly encouraged, kinda like settlement management. But think about how awesome this could be in an Elder Scrolls setting, all the potential things we could find out there: sea harpies, massive serpents, finding uncharted, mysterious islands, being a pirate within the Elder Scrolls universe. The potential here is huge, and it seems likely this could be the case for TES 6. Next, Starfield features an overhauled dialogue and persuasion mechanic, allowing the player to use persuasion points during a conversation, but having to manage those persuasion points like a resource, as each persuasion attempt utilizes a certain amount of persuasion points. I expect TES 6 to feature this mechanic as well. I also expect TES 6 to feature an unvoiced main protagonist again, as that'll be the case in Starfield and was the case for basically every Elder Scrolls game, mostly because paying enough voice actors to voice all the player dialogue for each potential race in the game would be a ton of work and be quite expensive, so I don't think we'll ever have a true voiced player protagonist in an Elder Scrolls game, or at least a regular one, and not one of the spin-offs we've seen or might see. Other small things we can assume the Elder Scrolls 6 will have based on Starfield are as follows: an improved and overhauled companion system. The same goes for managing the people in our settlements and potentially our ships as well. the return of the faction system, seemingly with more depth and focus than previous games, as Starfield seems to show this. A larger map with more biomes than we've seen in any previous single-player Elder Scrolls game. Starfield will no doubt have a huge map. I don't expect TES 6 to have a map quite as large as Starfield, but Starfield is pushing Bethesda to its region-building boundaries as they have to create numerous unique and vastly different locations and biomes to fit the space setting. I expect the Elder Scrolls 6 to take place in multiple regions because of this, offering a more diverse biome experience than we've seen in any other Elder Scrolls game yet, except for obviously the Elder Scrolls Online. And to be honest, this is only the top layer of the cake here. In this video, we've touched on many obvious improvements we'll see in the Elder Scrolls 6, but we've also uncovered some stuff and exciting systems that TES 6 could feature as well that may not seem obvious at first. Remember though, consider all this speculation for now, but as speculation goes, I hope I was able to give my thoughts at least a bit of credibility here. That's going to finish up today's video though. Let me know down in the comments below what game mechanics you want to see in the Elder Scrolls 6 and what mechanics I listed here that got you the most excited. Be sure to like the video to help push it to new people, subscribe to join the community, and if you want to get your name added to a permanent future video shoutout list, support the channel on Ko-fi, Patreon, or here on YouTube as an exclusive channel member. And as always, I appreciate your time, and thank you for watching.
It just works.